All right, everyone, welcome back to the Blue Chip Scouting YouTube channel. I am Tyler Browning. I'm joined by the other Tyler Blue Chip, Tyler Forness. How you doing, Tyler?
I'm doing good, man. We have the NFL draft a mere hours away, and it is a really, really exciting time. And the one really interesting thing about this draft is the prop bets are all over the place. And I know we're going to be talking about that a lot today.
Yeah, when this posts, the draft will be a little over 24 hours away. We thought it'd be a fun little video to give you who we think is some picks on way to earn money for you this week. I live in the state of Texas, so I'll have to be going through my bookie in Pennsylvania, also known as Andrew Harbaugh, if I want to be able to place bets. But who knows? I mean, I might after this video. I might talk myself into placing a couple.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I will almost put money on Trayvon Walker to go first overall when it bumped to plus 350 2 weeks ago Monday. And I really wish I would have, because that has really swung in the favor of Trayvon Walker. So you could have made some money there.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of Trayvon Walker, I mean, the first bet we'll cover is the first pick, and Trayvon Walker looks to be the favorite right now that I'm seeing.
He is the favorite per DraftKings. He is at minus 190, which for those of you who don't know betting super well, when it's plus or minus, it's you have to bet that much to get to win $100. So for minus 190, you have to bet 190 to win $100. If it's plus 190, you have to bet $100 to win 190. So that's kind of how that works. But the cheapest odds you're going to get are with DraftKings at that 190 mark. When you take a look at the rest of the board, Aiden Hutchinson at plus 225, Ikem Ekwonu plus 450 at DraftKings, as high as plus 650 with PointsBet. Now that's an interesting one because we did see the reports earlier today that Doug Peterson does favor Ikem Ekwonu, and it is potentially his call over Trent Baalke's. So that is one to keep an eye on. I would consider investing. If you have 10 or 15 bucks to spare, throw it on Ikem Ekwonu, because if you hit, you could be ending up like multiplying your money by 6. And that is a really good value bet considering where we're at right now. I think Trayvon Walker is going to be the first overall pick, but just from a strict value perspective, Ekwonu is a great play here.
And from a Jaguars team building perspective, you would think Ekwonu or Neal should be the pick. We've heard Neal's stuff about medicals, whether that holds any weight with NFL teams or not, that's remained to be seen. But you just spent number one pick on Trevor Lawrence last year. You need a line to protect him. I would think the logical pick would be Ekwonu or Neal, but Walker's been getting a lot of buzz, man. It's hard to ignore that.
It really is hard to ignore. And the really tough part about us as guys who really grind film is Walker on film right now is nowhere near the number one overall pick. But if you look at 100th percentile outcomes and look at his potential ceiling, you can see a path to where he becomes a top 5 edge rusher in the National Football League. And that for teams is incredibly appealing. That 35-inch arm length and his ability to utilize those arms when engaged, I think is something that you can really build on. And if you unleash him as a true edge, I think that can be where he really shines. But it's a big risk to take a guy with that little production at the college level at first overall. But the market is trending to where Trayvon Walker is going to be that top pick.
Yeah, if you're looking to avoid this bet, I would completely understand it. But as Forno mentioned earlier, I'd be tempted to throw 5 or 10 bucks on Ikem. I mean, we don't know Neal's medicals, what the situation is there. We're not with an NFL team, so we don't have that info. But at plus 650, $5 on that, that's not a bad bet in my opinion.
No, that's a great bet because you're looking at a $32.50 profit after, like, with a $5 bet. That's just great value. That can buy you a case of beer, a bottle of Crown Royal Apple, which I know is your personal favorite.
Hey.
That is exactly how you want to play the system.
And with the next bet, we'll go ahead and move on to the second overall pick.
Yeah, let me pull that up here real quick. Second pick is very interesting. And with the shift we've seen with Travon Walker, we have also seen a shift to Aiden Hutchinson being the overwhelming favorite. FanDuel has him listed at minus 200 with as high as minus 167 with Unibet. I think the best value here is Malik Willis at plus 2,000, just because we know what kind of player Malik Willis is. He is incredibly polarizing all over the board. Tyler and I have incredibly different viewpoints on him. But if you look at just the traits, you can see why a team would want to prioritize him with the second overall pick, especially one that needs a quarterback. So at plus 2,000, that is a good value bet for that $5 or $10 bet. Kayvon Thibodeau is another interesting one because if Hutchinson ends up going one, I don't know if they're going to view Walker in the same light, and Kayvon Thibodeau could be an interesting one there. But there were reports that there were concerns if he would fit in with the culture of the Detroit Lions. Maybe he's just not a guy who likes to bite kneecaps. I don't know, but that's one to look at. I really don't see anything else worth playing except Sauce Gardner. A lot of talk about him going in the top 5 over the last week, plus 3,000 with FanDuel. That's something that you might be interested. Like, hey, I'll throw $5 on there. Oh, all of a sudden, I just won 150. That's a good value, but it would be really hard for me to touch anything with substantial money with the second overall pick, just for the fact that it's a massive wild card what's going to happen at 1, and what happens at 1 is going to really shift everything.
Yeah, I mean, Aiden Hutchinson is a favorite here, and I mean, as he should be. If he's not gone 1, I don't think the hometown team will pass on him in Detroit. Kayvon Thibodeau is an interesting one. If Hutch does go 1, Thibodeau could very well be the pick. And he's a show plus 250 odds, I think that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good way to earn, I don't know, like $750 on a $5 bet. I don't know with math. But yeah, as you mentioned, we have massive differing opinions on Malik Willis. But at plus 2,000, if you have the money to spare, I wouldn't hate that bet. This isn't accounting for a trade up, so who knows? Could be Pittsburgh, could be whoever trades up to 2 for Willis. They don't want to take the risk that he gets taken later on. And teams always overvalue QBs. We see it every year.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter if they're a 4th round grade by the draft community, 3rd round grade. If they have traits that are promising, which Willis does, teams will overvalue them and shoot them up to the draft boards and go after them high overall. So if you have the $5 to spare, I wouldn't hate the Willis pick. I don't think that one will come to fruition. I think it is Hutchinson, assuming he is on the board. But if you have $5 spare, by all means, throw it on Malik Willis.
I'm with you 100%. That's one I'm going to look at real hard here because I do have him in my final mock draft going number 2 to the Detroit Lions. That's going to be a very interesting one. What do we have next on the docket here, Tyler?
While we're speaking of Malik Willis, we have Malik Willis number 1. And the only way this happens is a trade up. So,
that first overall pick, plus 10,000 on DraftKings. Unless you hear any kind of steam about Malik Willis or a potential trade with the Jacksonville Jaguars, because we did hear that there were rumblings that nobody's been calling about picks 2 and pick 3. So that's, if they're not calling about 2 and 3, they're definitely not calling about number 1 overall with how divisive and I guess questionable is maybe the wrong word, but how uncertain the top of this draft is. I wouldn't consider putting money on anybody here other than Aiden Hutchinson or Ikem Ekwonu. And we already kind of parsed that one out earlier, but plus 10,000 for a team that already has a franchise quarterback and betting on them to trade out with no steam about it, I just don't think is something you should touch at all.
Yeah, we touched on it a little bit earlier. I mean, Ike Ekwonu would be the logical pick for me if I was drafting number 1 for Jacksonville. But an interesting name that's still here despite his injury is David Ojabo. That has no shot of happening.
Yeah, and that's a bet 365 plus 12,500. Yeah, that's a zero chance. I'm worried about him getting into the first round, let alone being the number 1 overall pick. That's something that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole.
And what's crazy was he had a case of being the better prospect out of Michigan edge rushers. I know I said that taking the blue chip group, it got no reactions. Then 10 minutes later, Ben came in the same thing and everyone blew up the message about it. And that got me a little flustered. But, I mean, with his Ben, there was a small case. He was a better prospect than Aiden. But, yeah, right now, don't put money on that whatsoever. As Forness said, there's no guarantee goes in the first round. But the next bet that we have is first cornerback selected.
Absolutely. This one's an interesting one, and it's really a two-man race. It's Ahmad, Sauce Gardner, and Derek Stingley Jr. The best odds you're going to find on sportsbooks, and we're using Odds Checker US for this. And when you have multiple sportsbooks, this is a really nice tool to really get your best odds. The best odds you're going to find for Derek Stingley Jr. plus 135 with DraftKings, and for Sauce Gardner minus 150 with Caesars. This is a really difficult one because I really don't see great value on either one. Sauce at minus 150. He's the likely guy to go number 1, but all it takes is the Houston Texans to want Derek Stingley Jr. at number 3, and then all of a sudden you're losing your money. And Stingley plus 135, I don't consider that enough of a margin to really want to take that chance that somebody just wants him over Sauce. So this is one I would stay away from. Trent McDuffie at plus 2,000 is interesting, but I don't think there's a team in the top 10 that would value the technical savvy of Trent McDuffie with some of his physical limitations to really be able to take him that high. So I'm staying away from this one completely.
Yeah, this is not a bet I'd put money on with the way the odds are. If I was forced to, I mean, give me Stingley because he's the non-favorite and have a chance at winning money. And his 2019 tape is some of the best tape I've ever seen. Absolutely teach tape of film from corner. And that doesn't go away from teams when they're evaluating prospects. So if I was forced to put money on it, I'd put like $5 on Stingley. But yeah, I'm avoiding this bet altogether. The next one we have is first linebacker selected.
Yeah, this is one I just wrote up for NBC earlier tonight. I really don't think that it's worth putting any money into Kobe Dean at this point, but it is intriguing because Devin Lloyd currently right now is minus 425 per DraftKings. And if you look at FanDuel, Nakobe Dean is plus 600. I think with Devin Lloyd's skill set, there's just no way, not even the New England Patriots would prioritize Nakobe Dean over Devin Lloyd because there's really nothing that Nakobe Dean does exemplary better than Devin Lloyd, and Lloyd is much bigger, giving you just a wider margin of error when it comes to little nuance things, tackle radius, the ability to impact the passing game in coverage, the ability to rush the passer. Both were really good at in college, and Kobe Dean and Devin Lloyd both scored plus over 88 in their PFF grades with just pass rushing. I've talked myself into it. I'm willing to put $5 on Kobe Dean plus 600. I don't think it's going to happen, but the value is really nice. And how Nakobe Dean played all season, and then Devin Lloyd, his testing was not quite as explosive as he wanted it to be, only ran a 4.6 240-yard dash. I think that there is a slight chance, but this is one I would tend to stay away from. Quay Walker had some buzz earlier today that he could potentially be that guy with his insane athleticism. And I think there is some pass rush upside with him. Plus 1,500 on points bet. That is one that could be really interesting. Keep an eye on that as we get a little closer to the draft. Check on any buzz Thursday morning. If you keep hearing some on Quay Walker, throw a few bucks on it and see what happens, because linebacker is a very weird position for the NFL draft. It is not considered a premium one, but teams, when they fall in love with the guy, they believe he becomes a premium player. So watch for Quay Walker in the hours leading up to Thursday night's draft.
Yeah, I mean, you took the words right in my mouth. I mean, this is a bet I would avoid to begin with, because you're not going to win much money, if any, if you bet Devin Lloyd. And by all purposes, he should be the first linebacker selected. Nakobe Dean doesn't have the best measurables, and teams are obsessed with those for whatever reasons they may have. His odds are plus 600, not enough to tempt me more than Quay Walker. As you said, there's been some serious buzz that teams are higher on Walker than Dean as of late. There's talk of him sneaking into the first round. If you got $5 or $10 to lose, put it on Quay Walker. I mean, there's a chance he goes higher than Dean. Whether he should or not, that's a different discussion. But yeah, like Tyler said, check in on Thursday, see what teams are saying, what reports are coming out about. He's not a bad option at plus 1,500. The next one we have is first offensive lineman selected.
Ooh, this one is going to get interesting. Cam Ekwonu has the best odds to go up as the first offensive lineman selected, especially because right now he seems to be the only offensive lineman involved with the first overall pick. Minus 200 across the board, but Unibet has him minus 155, which I find a little interesting. Evan Neal is second. His best odds are plus 300 with DraftKings. BetMGM is Charles Cross at plus 350. Now, here's something interesting that we found out earlier tonight. Albert Breer wrote in his column that some teams are concerned about Evan Neal's hip and knee, not for just as a long-term thing. And Breer doesn't believe it's going to push him down more than a couple slots, but he thinks that teams are going to use that as a tiebreaker between him, Ekwonu, and Charles Cross, and that could make him the third guy to go off the board in the top 10. Teams tend to love Charles Cross, and PFF, Austin Gale has a number 2 on his board, and Mike Renner number 3, and that's overall. Both have him as offensive tackle number 1. Cross is a very interesting play. Ekwonu, with that ability to go number 1 overall, I think is going to be the guy that goes there. If you could get it at minus 155, I think that's a good value. Throw 10, 15 bucks on it, and you're still going to get a decent return. Cross is an interesting one at plus 350 just because he is such a dominant pass protector. The way the league is trending, we saw it last year with Rashawn Slater. Pass blocking is king right now. And if you can do it at a high level, teams are going to prioritize you. So Cross is a really interesting value if you can get it close to that plus 400 range.
Yeah, I'm looking at the draft order right now, and is there a world where Cross gets past 6 at Carolina? I mean, sure, but is it a very likely world? I'm not so sure.
I don't know. It really depends on, one, what they do at quarterback. Do they take Kenny Pickett? Do they take Malik Willis? Do they trade back? Because that's still a possibility with not having another pick until like the 130s that Carolina needs to at least explore. I still think Trevor Penning has a chance to go as offensive tackle 3 because even though he is not nearly as refined, and I don't have him above Charles Cross, the explosiveness and physicality in the run game, a team like Seattle, I think is going to prioritize a guy like Trevor Penning, and they're going to take him way earlier than they probably should. And I think that it's what really makes Charles Cross interesting, because he could really realistically go first of these guys or fourth. And that wide variance is just, and it makes it really tough.
Yeah, I mean, Neal is my offensive tackle 1. I don't take medicals into account because I'm not a doctor. But him and Ikem are separated by less than a point. Ikem is honestly your best bet here, in my opinion. You're not going to win a ton of money, so I understand if you want to stay away from this. But however much truth that report may hold, we could see a slide of Neal on draft day. Maybe it's like 8-12 range. I don't know. Teams are overly cautious about medicals, and to an extent, they should be.
Mm-hmm. And I'll read this verbatim, Tyler. A handful of teams have raised knee and hip issues concerning Alabama OT Evan Neal, with a good number of clubs considering him a notable medical risk. Now, it doesn't say if there's anything super specific. It's very vague in general, but a lot of times with medical stuff, you're dealing with HIPAA, and it can be really difficult to fully disclose. Could it be a lingering thing, like something like tendonitis, arthritis, a degenerative thing? Like, we just don't know. But when you play at 6'7" and 350 and you play something as explosive as offensive tackle, it wouldn't be a big surprise.
Your freshman year of high school.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a big surprise to see that he has some form of joint issue, whether short-term or long-term, just because that's a lot of weight to be moving like that with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I stay away from medical stuff altogether, but Evan Neal, even though he's my offensive tackle 1, I think I can see a bang for your buck here if you're looking to turn a $5 or $10 gain, something like that. The next prop bet is a fun one. First QB drafted.
First QB drafted. This one is going to get interesting because it's
Cole Kelly is on here. 20,000 odds.
Yep, plus 20,000 for Cole Kelly and Brock Purdy, and
my God,
those are honestly up there. So you can just get a couple bucks from their alma maters and just say, "Oh, I'll throw $5 on it. Maybe it could happen." It's not going to happen. So it's not like hitting the Powerball jackpot. It's not going to happen. Taking a look, Malik Willis minus 140 on FanDuel, Kenny Pickett plus 170 on DraftKings. I really like the Kenny Pickett value here because there's so many question marks on how teams view Malik Willis, and I think Kenny Pickett is going to go at 6 to Carolina. I just can't get over the fact that he and Rule have been tight, and Pickett committed to Rule at Temple, and Rule is that kind of guy where he's going to value that relationship and he's going to value the high floor because that can save him his job. And Willis is probably not going to be able to get you that kind of performance year 1, where long-term Willis has an astronomical ceiling in comparison to Pickett. The interesting one here for first quarterback taken, Desmond Ritter, plus 1,000 on DraftKings. And when you talk about Ritter, I think he only has a ceiling of an Alex Smith. I don't think he's very mechanically sound, especially with his feet. He played in an offense that really prioritized first option reads, and hey, we're going to chuck it up to Alec Pierce, and Pierce bailed him out a lot at Cincinnati. I am not the biggest fan of Ritter, but a team like Seattle might want to prioritize him in the top 10 if they choose to go quarterback. So with quarterbacks being the most uncertain position, value here, I think, is what you need to chase. And I would look at Kenny Pickett and Desmond Ritter for those opportunities.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Seattle for Ritter because I was looking at the draft order and I was like, oh, Seattle seems like a fairly fun landing spot for Ritter. I mean, they're notoriously wild with their draft selections. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they take Ritter at 9. Kenny Pickett, as I said with Cross, Carolina seems like a logical choice. As much as our Panthers fan, Jared, will hate that. Sorry, Jared. I think it's a real possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Malik Willis is interesting. I don't love him. Tyler does. But he's your best bet here, honestly. I mean, NFL teams covet traits more than anything, and you're blind if you can't see Willis doesn't have traits. He's super exciting as a player, super raw as a player still. but teams covet traits, and I could see him going number 2.
Yeah, I could see him going number 2 as well. But as far as how this bet pops up, I really think that you got to chase the value of Kenny Pickett and potentially Desmond Ritter. That's how I would utilize this.
Yeah, I mean, Kenny gives you a good shot to maximize your money at 170. And I think Carolina at 6 is a very reasonable spot. I haven't heard anything on how teams fare on Ritter. I know he has his fans in draft circles. I'm not one of them. But him at 1,000 odds, I kind of like that bet a little more. I would probably lose money on this bet, but if you have money to spare, $5 on Ritter isn't a bad option.
And you're chasing value with this one. So chasing the value at Ritter plus 1,000 when you're going to be able to get a return of $50 on a $5 bet. I would still hesitate a little bit, but that's chasing value. Kenny Pickett, a $10 bet's going to net you 17. That's great value for a guy who's probably going to end up going top 10. So that's where I lean. Take Kenny Pickett and just kind of see what happens. I still think Malik Willis ends up going number 1 as far as the quarterbacks, but don't be surprised, especially with Matt Rule in the top 10.
Yeah, if you said gun to my head, I'd probably choose Pickett, just because he's in the favorable column in terms of odds and gives you a chance at winning money before you had to bet to actually earn your money back with Willis. So, yeah, I mean, I don't love this QB class. It's on record, but gun to my head, yeah, I would choose Pickett. The next bet we have is first offensive player drafted.
Yeah, the first offensive player drafted is a very interesting one as well because it takes the quarterbacks out of it. So essentially, you're looking at, is a tackle going to go first or is a wide receiver going to go ahead of him? You have Tyler Linderbaum at plus 10,000 per DraftKings, but I just don't think that's realistic. I like Linderbaum more than most, but him going top 10 with his arm length is just not going to happen. If he had 33-plus inch arms, I think you could have that conversation. But with how things currently sit, it's just a no. Iquanu is the leader in the pack at minus 250 at DraftKings, and we'll just kind of go online because DraftKings has most of these posted. Evan Neal and Charles Cross have both plus 350. So if you believe Neal's going to be the first offensive tackle off the board, then you bet him here to really maximize your money because it's an extra 50 points to go with this bet over the offensive tackle. I think if you're going to chase value, Neal's the spot to go here. It just makes too much sense that he would be the first offensive lineman. I think the only realistic spot he could go is Houston. And Houston, that's going to be the real turning point of the draft because we have a gut feeling of what Jacksonville and Detroit are going to do. But what Houston does at 3 is going to really set the tone. If they go corner, if they go offensive line, edge rusher, maybe they shock the world, take Malik Willis or a wide receiver because they don't feel they're going to get the one they want at 13. It's also a prime trade-up spot. So pick 3 is really going to be that turning point. Neal here holds the best value.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with Linderbaum. His arm length, I mean, it's not ideal. His film is some of the best film in the class, and he's a top 10 player for me. But Evan Neal, Charles Cross, and Linderbaum's tags are all touching on my board. They're player 4, 5, and 6 for me. And yeah, I agree. Neal is the best bang for your buck. There's reports he's off teams' boards, sure. But that's some teams, not all teams. And granted, the report wouldn't have come out if it wasn't teams that were picking high that were... The report wouldn't have come out if it was teams that were picking low to where they would have been out of reach from to begin with. So it could be about teams picking high, have him off their board, and he could wash down, make Icky or Cross a better pick. But I mean, at plus 350, Neal could go anywhere from really anywhere in the first top 5 picks. It wouldn't surprise me. So yeah, getting him at plus 350, that would be my bet.
What do we got next?
The next bet, first wide receiver drafted.
First wide receiver drafted. See, this is going to be very interesting because of how this wide receiver class is really stacked. This
And
wide
there's
receiver
no
class.
favorite.
Yeah, not having a favorite makes things even more difficult. And it's really about just chasing who you think is going to be that guy. Garrett Wilson is even odds at plus 100. And I think Atlanta is his ceiling. You have Jamison Williams plus 200, Drake London plus 275, and Chris Olave plus 2,500. I think if you're going to throw a dart, you throw Jamison Williams because of that elite speed. And one of the reasons why he keeps being linked with the Kansas City Chiefs is because he is a tremendous, tremendous speedster. And he has that elite start and stop ability that makes Tyreek Hill even more special. And everybody knows that play against Georgia where he just absolutely torched them with that little stutter and go. That is what Jamison Williams brings to you. He's going to be raw in almost every other element of the game, but that dynamic weapon, while he continues to develop a full skill set, is why I think he's going to be the best value here, and why I would place money plus 200. Double your money. You're going to be tripling your money with whatever you put. If you put $100 on, you're getting 200 back. You're going to turn 100 into 300. That's a really good day. I would go Jamison Williams here with a bullet.
Yeah, with no favorite, it makes it interesting. I mean, I wouldn't hate throwing $5 or $10 on Garrett Wilson. As you notice, I'm not a huge bettor. I'm more of a $5 parlay type of guy. I don't like to throw in tons of money on a bet, but Jamison Williams at plus 200 is a very good bet as well. He has a game-breaking speed, as Tyler alluded to. ACL injuries aren't what they used to be. They're not a death sentence. 9.9 times out of 10, a player is going to come back and be just as good as he was before it, post-surgery and post-recovery. With no favorite, I wouldn't hate a Garrett Wilson bet either, but yeah, I mean, we saw Henry Ruggs go wherever he went, whether that panned out or not.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely didn't, but teams covet speed, and Williams has the fastest out of anyone in the class.
No, 100%. And I think the Ruggs pick is very interesting because they're different players. Ruggs was a more complete receiver in a better and deeper draft class across the board. And you have Jamison Williams, who is really just a vertical dynamo, and they used him in a myriad of ways to get him open in space so he could be able to utilize that skill set. They didn't really focus on Ruggs, mainly because they had 3 other first-round receivers, Jalen Waddle, Jerry Jeudy, and Devonta Smith, on the team. So comparing them is really difficult, but I think just the speed element of Jamison Williams is going to be able to take that next level for an offense, and I think that's going to be incredibly valued by teams, making him the best value bet here.
And for clarification purposes for the audience, my Henry Ruggs name drop was not a comparison of the players. It was a comparison of how the NFL covets speed and nothing more. I loved Ruggs coming out, but that didn't work out, as we all saw.
Mm-hmm.
But the next bet that we have is Jordan Davis draft position.
Jordan Davis draft position. That's a very fascinating one. 14.5. That is a very, very tough one because he just screams Baltimore Raven. You talk about all the nose tackles that they have had in Baltimore since the advent of the Ravens in 1996. Tony Siragusa, Haloti Ngata, Sam Adams. Now Michael Pierce is back for his second stint. Brandon Williams. They love having that big boy up in front of the center to be able to two gap and let those linebackers eat in run protection. This is one I wouldn't touch because I just think Baltimore makes too much sense and the value's not there. Like minus 130 is okay, but do you really want to put like $20 down if you're only going to net like 16 back? Like that, to me, that just doesn't make sense. I'm skipping this one. If you want, like, I don't know, maybe if you have a ton of extra capital, you throw a little bit on over 14.5 because you're getting a positive return. But this is the line set too perfectly. I'm out.
Yeah, the line here is set incredibly well. You have the Vikings at 12, and from what I understand, they're possibly in play. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Who is possibly in play?
The Vikings.
I don't know. We really have no idea how Kwesi Adolfo-Mensa is going to attack this draft. I've been able to surmise that I think they're going to go premium position and they're going to have age be a factor. So they're not going to take like a 23-year-old Jermaine Johnson. They're going to prioritize younger players because Denzel Ward just signed a second contract at 24 years old. And I think that's the direction that they're looking at. So Davis, non-premium position, but absolute outlier athlete. It's a big wild card. I honestly don't know, but I can't officially rule him out because I have nothing to go off of.
Yeah, I mean, the Vikings and the Ravens seem like the two most logical landing spots before 14 and a half, I guess, because Ravens are at 14. If you're going to bet, I would bet the under or the over. Excuse me. Teams love pass rush. Jordan Davis, at the current moment, does not offer a ton of that. I'm avoiding this bet altogether, but gun to my head, if I had to bet, I'm going to go over. He's elite at what he does, and that's run stuffing. He has a long ways to go in the pass rush department. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him go over 14.5, but yeah, this is a bet I'm staying away from. The next bet is team to draft Kenny Pickett. And we touched on this a bit earlier. But Carolina is in favorable odds right now.
Mm-hmm. That's an offshore sports book. They're at plus 300. If you come back onshore, they are actually the leaders in the clubhouse. FanDuel DraftKings and Caesars at plus 150, FanDuel plus 175, and the New Orleans Saints on all three of those sports books are at plus 200. I still think it's Carolina. I can't see the Saints prioritizing Kenny Pickett with that draft capital and how they maneuver to trade up to go get him when they have Jameis Winston, who honestly has a higher ceiling, but he does have the lower floor. I've argued in the past that I think the Saints make sense for Pickett because they were able to win for so long with Drew Brees and how he was never a high ceiling guy and he really won with his intelligence and his vision down the field. And I think Pickett has the ability to win in the same way. I don't think that you trade that kind of capital to get a second first round pick to trade up and get a guy with a low floor. If they're going to trade up and get a quarterback, I think it's going to end up being Willis, or they trade to get a tackle because their offense is really predicated around two great tackles. I think if you're looking at this, the Panthers and Steelers are probably my favorites on this one because the Steelers, they've spent a lot of time with Pickett. Obviously, they share a facility with the University of Pittsburgh at Heinz Field. And the Panthers, obviously, we talked about the Rule connection earlier. I think those are your two go-tos here. If you could get the Panthers at plus 200 or better, I would take it. Take it and run.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head when you brought up the Steelers as well. Those are my two spots. Carolina at 6 or Pittsburgh, and I think that'd be a trade up most likely. Yeah, they're at 20. So, yeah, I mean, Kenny's a local Pittsburgh kid, obviously. Hometown hero. Makes sense that way. I'm sorry, Jared, but yeah, I'd bet Carolina. For shits and giggles, there is a team on here I want to bring up, and I hope our good friend from the north is listening. Mike, the Philadelphia Eagles are on here. I hope they trade up and take them. All the picks.
Oh,
1.1. Give me Pickett.
that would be hilarious. I would laugh so hard for them to go from Jalen Hurts to Kenny Pickett.
I'm
Tremendous.
just waiting for the angry message Mike sends when this video drops.
Oh, it'll be awesome. It'll be hilarious.
All right, the next bet we have is team to draft Malik Willis.
All right, team to draft Malik Willis. It's going to be slightly different from what we've seen with Kenny Pickett, but you're going to see a lot of the same teams on here. And I think the one to really focus in on is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have them going to the Detroit Lions, which is plus 2,000 per FanDuel, plus 350 on DraftKings. So there is a massive disparity between those two sports books. If you can get the plus 2,000 on FanDuel, I would jump on that for the Detroit Lions. But with DraftKings, the plus 300 for the Steelers have been known to telegraph picks. Everybody knew that they were taking Najee Harris last year. Like, they are not secretive about who they go visit. They're not secretive about really anything they do. I would look at that and just be like, hey, these guys are a team that they traded a big time, a first, second, and third to go up 10 spots to go draft Devin Bush. Would not be shocked if they go do it again to get that quarterback of the future. The tough thing is they did sign Mitch Trubisky, which signaled that, hey, we're comfortable with quarterback if we have to be. But then they also unfortunately lost Dwayne Haskins in a tragedy. And that leaves them one short in a QB room where they were really hoping to develop him. So when you lose a guy that you were looking to develop into a potential starter, you have a hole to fill. And I really think that could be Malik Willis. So plus 300, or if you can get even better odds, jump on it right away, because the Steelers, I would project they're going to go all out to try and get Malik Willis.
Yeah, it's interesting. Pittsburgh is on here again. That's a logical way, and they're slated in position to earn you money. So that's who I would bet on. If you do have money to spare, throw $5 or $10 in the Lions. 2,000 odds is incredible odds. I would not take him that high, nor do I think he should be taken that high. But 2,000 odds for the most valuable position in football, yeah, I'm going to take that if I have money to spare. All right, the next bet we have is an interesting one, and that is Trevor Penning draft position.
Yes.
The line is 16.5.
16.5 is a very logical spot, too, because not only do you have the Chargers at 17 who desperately need a tackle, you have the Saints and Eagles who also need tackles, with the Eagles a little less than the Saints, but you do need to start considering replacing Lane Johnson because he's in his mid-30s and he has been very injury prone. So Penning could be an option for both teams. I find it really tough to want to prioritize any team in this spot for Trevor Penning, just because like over is plus 125. Like, I would want to take the under here because I think the Seahawks are that wild card at 9, that or a team wants to trade up to jump one of these teams to go get Trevor Penning with, say, the Vikings or the Texans. I just think under 16.5 is going to hit because that run is going to happen early with tackles. And then you're going to see teams try to get that last one in Penning before it's too late and they have to potentially settle for a Tyler Smith or a Bernard Raymond. So I don't like the value here at all.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Saints and Eagles are two fairly logical places that he could end up. But Seattle is the big wild card. We never know what they're going to do in the draft. Funny that you mentioned, I forgot to bring it up last segment. Never mind. Wouldn't make sense now. But, yeah, Seattle is a total wild card, and I would never doubt that they're going to reach on a player, and Penning fits that bill. If I was, again, forced to pick, I would probably say under. He's an athletic freak, stupid power, incredibly raw still. Has a long ways to go, but yeah, I think I'd go under.
Yeah, and I get the under, but I just think there's too many opportunities for him to go over. I just don't feel comfortable touching it.
Yeah, this is another bet that I would stay away from as a whole. But the next one we have is Tyler Linderbaum draft position. And there's some variation in lines here.
Over 27.5 and over 28.5. It depending on what sportsbook you're looking at, it gives very interesting odds. You get FanDuel is at 28.5, minus 114 on both sides. 27.5 DraftKings minus 140 plus 105. If you're on DraftKings, I like the plus 105 at under 27.5 because I think there's a run of teams that need interior offensive linemen that could potentially prioritize Tyler Linderbaum. You have the Packers who need to upgrade their interior, the Cardinals, the Cowboys, I know they just re-signed Ben Jones, but the Titans need offensive line help, and the Bucks. You have a nice run where you can potentially get positive money by putting it under 27.5. I think that's a good value play. I do think there's a real chance that Linderbaum falls out of the first round, but if you see Zion Johnson and Kenyon Green go real quick, if you don't like Tyler Smith, Linderbaum is going to be that guy for a team that wants to beef up the interior. I would take under 27.5 at that plus 105. I just think it's too good a value to not throw a few dollars on it.
Yeah, I absolutely love Linderbaum. He's incredibly high on my board. But I know he's not going to be a Cowboy. Even if he's on the board, they're going to pass on him. I already know it. He doesn't have the arm length they love. They're going to go Zion, Kenyon, or a receiver. They're not going to take Linderbaum. I think Arizona is fairly safe to pencil in Zion Johnson. Kenyon Green, we can pencil him into the Cowboys if Burks isn't there or Olave. This one is a very hard line for me. I think for the sake of being different, even though it's not going to win you any money, I'm going to take the over. I think teams are going to covet so much the arm length, overthink of what's I would think to say a unanimous top 10 guy on film people's boards. I mean, his film was stupid. But, I mean, we see it every year. Teams covet athletic traits, measurables, more than film. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him go over. And, yeah, that's a favorite right now. I'm not going to win you any money unless you put a significant amount down. But I think that would be my bet, honestly. I wouldn't be surprised if he slips to early second round, in all honesty.
Yeah, I'm with you right there. That early second round range makes a lot of sense for him. But I just think that under with the positive money is just something that I would really want to prioritize.
Oh, yeah. Wouldn't hate you for choosing either way, but I think over that line is where it tends to be heading. So let's see here. The next bet is total QBs in round 1.
Total QBs in round 1. Now I just got to find it. First round quarterbacks. So it's another split one. You have it listed at over 2.5 and over 3.5. So let's kind of break this down here. Over 2.5, you're looking at minus 250, under 2.5 plus 190. I really don't think that's DraftKings Sportsbook, by the way. I don't think that you're going to be able to want to bet under 2.5 because it's the NFL and they're going to make quarterbacks happen. I've heard some rumblings that the Lions love Sam Howell on the back end of the first round at 32. You have Matt Corral could sneak in, Desmond Ritter. So outside of Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis, there's just a high likelihood. Now, this one is interesting with FanDuel. Plus 182 over 3.5. I like that because 4 quarterbacks in the first round feels plausible. It doesn't feel insane. And your mileage is going to vary on how good this quarterback class is, and that's 100% fair. But there are capable players that NFL teams could convince themselves that they can be franchise guys. And because of that, I think that you could easily see 4 quarterbacks go in the first round. I would take plus 182 at FanDuel right away, and I would run with it.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned those 4 guys. None of them are my QB1, but that's because he has like a degenerative knee or some shit. So, yeah, the guys that I wouldn't be surprised to see go first round are Pickett, Willis, Ritter, and Howell. Howell, very logical at 32. Ritter, Pittsburgh, maybe. I don't know about a great landing spot for him. Maybe New Orleans. I'm not totally sure. But a team could trade back up that picked earlier in the draft and it's the late one and want to pick him up if he starts to fall there.
Mm-hmm. And that's the tricky one. Guys falling and teams jumping back into the first round. We see it all the time.
Get that 5th-year option.
Yep. 2 of the biggest ones that just in recent memory, Teddy Bridgewater, Lamar Jackson, both 32nd overall picks. Teams love jumping up and getting that 5th-year option, as you said, Tyler. Like, it's a thing. Expect it to happen again.
Yeah, Detroit could very well stay put there and take out. They don't need to trade out. Maybe Cincinnati becomes a trade spot for someone who wants to get ahead of Detroit because they're taking Howell.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Kansas City wants to move back. They have back-to-back picks at 29 and 30. I'm not putting past the NFL for a team to trade up because they're going to overvalue a questionable at best QB class. They covet that 5th-year option. They want to see a guy develop before they make a final decision. Yeah, I would go over the 3.5. I think the number is 4 of realistic round 1 QBs. Even though QB1 Carson Strong is not in the discussion because of his knee. Yeah, Ritter, Howell, Pickett, and Willis. I think they're all very reasonable to go round 1. The third to last bet is total running backs in round 1.
And your mileage is going to vary about running backs, and it's at 0.5. I would just, for a value perspective, bet the over. The Bills need a running back. They feel like they're a couple players away from really being able to make that splash and be able to ease that pressure off of Josh Allen with a running back that has home run ability, has some contact balance. Right? Breece Hall is not a perfect back. I wouldn't even call him a first-round back. But when you talk about a team at the back end of the first round that needs that position, that feels like they can get over the hump with him, I think it's worth betting the over here at plus 162 with FanDuel. It makes too much sense for the pick to potentially happen, and then the value you're going to get from it is really nice. I would bet plus 162.
Yeah, I mean, us at Blue Chip, we tend to be very anti-first round running back. I'm really only in the position of take them if you have a very good roster and don't have many other needs that are glaring, and a running back would put your offense in a better position. And that's the case for the Bills. we know from the Bills mock draft that they are doing their homework on Breece Hall. Again, the fifth-year option for running back, that's crucial too. You can send him for a fifth year, then you can let him walk, gain comp pick, and go running back again in that draft 5 years down the road. I wouldn't be surprised to see him sneak in at 25. I think he is the only running back selected if he is selected in the first round. So, yeah, I mean, plus 162 for one running back, I would take that bet.
Yeah, 100%.
The second to last bet is total wide receivers in round 1.
So the value here is going to be that coming from if the top 5 receivers go early, and then you see 2 more go into the back end of the first round with teams like the Packers and the Chiefs really needing wide receiver. Over 6.5 is a fun one. Minus 108 with FanDuel. Caesars has under 5.5 plus 425. That tells you that there were runs early in the round on non-wide receiver positions, and you're going to see like 1, 2, or 3 of your Treylon Burks, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson fall into the 20s. I like that plus 425 for just a value perspective, because over 5.5 minus 600, I really think you're going to see 6, 7, or even 8 receivers going round 1, just with the need and how these wide receiver contracts have spiked so much, where you're going to see inherent value by having a fifth-year option. Just from a value perspective, plus 425 under 5.5, I would throw a few dollars on that. I think it's too good a value if you see a run early on non-receiver positions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at my board right now. I have 4 first-round grade, or 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 first-round receivers, 2 receivers with very high seconds, and a couple that are still later on in second. If we're talking strictly for my board, I'd put $10 on the under 5.5.
Mm-hmm.
Gives you the best odds, best chance to maximize your money. Whether that happens, I'm not so sure. As we've alluded to the past 3 times, that fifth-year option is really important. I mean, let's see. We have Wilson, Burks, Williams are for sure locks round 1. Dotson, Olave, London, Watson, dare I say, are questionable to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're borderline. George Pickens, Sky Moore, wouldn't be surprised to see someone that either of them sneak in there. So, I mean, that's at least 8 names right there. Yeah, 8 names, 9 names. That very well could go round 1. If I was forced to bet, oh, this line is good. Oh, man. I don't know what I would choose, honestly.
For the wide, if we're still talking wide receivers, man, like I'm going under 5.5. It's the best inherent value.
Yeah, you're getting the best bang for your buck with the plus 425 odds. 1, 2, 3. I really think it's going to be like right around 5. So, yeah, I would probably bet the under 5.5. All right, and our last bet is total safeties in round 1.
This one is going to be at 1.5, which really tells you that they only expect Hamilton to go round 1, and quite frankly, that's a
question mark.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. FanDuel has the under at plus 225, DraftKings at plus 220. I think under is the smart play here because there's so many positions that could go at the back end of the first round. You don't really start getting your safety talk until the mid-20s. And because of that, I think teams may be willing to wait until round 2 or round 3 and prioritize another position, potentially edge rusher. We just talked in depth about receiver. Interior offensive line is going to be a very popular one in the 20s. I would be willing to take the value with the under here. Daxton Hill and Lewis Cine, I think, are both first-round quality players, but will they be selected there based on how things fall? I genuinely don't know. Because of that with the 1.5, I think the value is what you want to chase.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that noted box safety Kyle Hamilton is going round 1. Box safety, my ass. Get out of here. There's talk of him sliding positional value, bad testing, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. He's my number 1 player. His film's amazing. He's going to go round 1. There's not a question in my mind. The names you brought up are interesting. Hill, I wonder if he'd be classified as a safety for some sports books. They could classify him as a corner. So I don't know. That's maybe something you want to look into, see where he's classified.
I think he's going to end up being classified as a safety.
Yeah. He did
I understand
take a lot of reps at nickel corner, though. So
I mean, he took a lot of reps at nickel corner. He basically exclusively played at nickel corner, but he's classified as a safety, and I don't think semantically the sports books are going to really deviate from what the consensus rankings are, and I don't see any of the big names ranking him at corner.
That's true. So you could be in the clear there. The name you brought up, Lewis Cine, I'm not as high as him on others, but it wouldn't surprise me to see a team like the Bucks take him at 27. Maybe the Chiefs too. I don't know. I mean, his testing was a stupid good. Teams covet that, as we've said a few times. I wouldn't be surprised to see him sneak into the back end of round 1. So if you're looking to make a smart bet, I would say over. If you're looking to maximize your earning potential, which is really what this video is about, sure, take the under. Why not? Kyle Hamilton's the only guaranteed guy.
Mm-hmm. One thing I want to mention before we wrap this video up, Tyler, I was just taking a look. The futures for 3rd overall pick to the Texans. The leader in the clubhouse per FanDuel Sportsbook, Derek Stingley Jr. at plus 250. Sauce Gardner at plus 450. So it really sounds like Lovie Smith and Nick Caserio are leaning cornerback at this point from what the market is telling us. And that becomes very interesting because with Stingley being prioritized as a 3rd overall pick, there instantly becomes more inherent value by taking Stingley at plus 137 to be the first cornerback taken off the board, because I don't believe he's going to go top. A corner is going to go top 2. Therefore, if you're going to get Stingley plus 250 at the 3rd pick, parlay it with him getting him plus 137 to be the first corner taken, and you can really score some value if he ends up going at 3rd overall.
Oh, that's good. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. I'm really not sure he'll be the first corner taken, whether that's Sauce or Stingley. I mean, Stingley's my CB1, but his tag is touching with Sauce. I'm not going to fault anyone for having Sauce over him. Sauce has a prototypical size, length that NFL teams love. I mean, yeah, parlay that pick with what Tyler said earlier. But
That's how you make your money.
Yep. Before we get out of here, is there any other bets that weren't necessarily on our list tonight that if you could find like a player's over under draft position that wasn't talked about tonight that you would say to bet?
You know what? That's a very good question. I think the 4th overall pick presents some inherent value because we've heard that Joe Douglas is not going to let Ike McQuanu get past him. One of the offshore books has him at plus 800 to go 4th overall. FanDuel plus 500. If you see that sneaking up, watch that market. If you see that moving up towards 600, 700, capitalize on it, because if he ends up at 4, he will be the pick based on everything we're hearing. So watch the Jets, that 4th overall pick. If you can get Ike McQuanu at a deal,
I wouldn't hate that at all. Mine centers around someone from your home state of Minnesota, and that is Boye Mafe. I wouldn't be surprised to see him sneak into the back end of round 1 at all.
Oh, yeah.
He got like a perfect 10 RAS, stupid athlete. His tape was fun. If you can find him like pick 35 or above, something like that, or even lower and above, I would be betting a significant amount of money on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not showing it's available anywhere, and maybe he doesn't have the name recognition. Maybe that bet comes later towards draft day. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him go 30 to Kansas City or 29. Maybe Tampa. I'm not too sure there, but
yeah,
I really like Mafe, and I wouldn't be surprised to see his name called in round 1. I called it last year with Roman's boy, Joe Tryon. I'm planting my flag this year. Boye Mafe is my quotation mark surprise first round pick.
I love Boye Mafe. All of his speed scores are tremendous. His 10-yard split was at 1.56 in the 98.8th percentile. His 40 time, 4.53 and 99.2 percentile, which actually matched his relative athletic score. Like, just a tremendous player. Both of his jumps were over the 95th percentile. And Cincinnati has been okay with subpar arm length, with Boye Mafe's at 32 and 5/8 inches, very similar to what Trey Hendrickson's is. Yep. We know what kind of dominant force he was for the Bengals last year. Sam Hubbard doesn't have the longest vines in the world either. They understand how to utilize those players and maximize their efficiency and output. Boye Mafe I had going to the Cincinnati Bengals in my final mock draft for NBC Sports Edge. I love the idea here of taking Mafe in the first round. If you get him in the second, oh, baby, that's great value, as you said. I love the player. I thought he would test similar, if not better, than Danielle Hunter, and he delivered. His vertical is more explosive at his pro day than it was at the combine. 41.5 inches at his pro day. Just nutty stuff from the young man.
But, yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. Hopefully we can help you earn some money. Hopefully we didn't bankrupt you if you decide to go with our choices. But for Blue Chip Scouting, all the staff, I'm Tyler. That is Tyler. Hope you all have a good weekend and enjoy the draft.